The chain around my wrist burns cold against my skin, and I do not know why that detail matters right now, but it does. Cold metal, cold air, cold eyes watching me from every side of the room. I am standing on a raised platform under white light, and somewhere beyond the glare, buyers are deciding how much I am worth. My name is Ethan Cole. 3 days ago I was fixing a broken fuel line on a cargo hauler at the edge of human space. Now I am property. That is the fastest anyone has ever ruined my week. The room is shaped like a bowl, with rows of seats climbing up toward a dark ceiling. Every seat holds someone who is not human. Some have skin like polished stone. Some have too many eyes. One creature near the front has no visible face at all, just a smooth plate that hums faintly when it moves. They are not here for me specifically. They are here because a slaver ship pulled 6 of us out of a disabled transport and decided we were worth more as merchandise than as passengers. A voice announces something in a language I do not understand, and then a translator box near my feet repeats it in flat, emotionless standard. Lot number 11. Human male. Skilled labor. Mechanical aptitude confirmed. Opening bid, 2,000 credits. I want to say something. I want to shout that I have rights, that someone will come looking for me, that this whole thing is illegal under a dozen treaties, but I already tried that with the guards backstage, and one of them hit me hard enough that I decided silence was the smarter plan. A hand rises somewhere in the crowd, then another. The numbers climb faster than I expect. Apparently a human who can fix machines is worth more than I thought, which should feel like a compliment, except it does not, because the currency here is my entire life. I search the crowd for a face that looks even a little bit kind. I do not find one. Most of the buyers look bored, the way people look when they are shopping for furniture. A few look hungry, which is worse. Then the bidding stops, not because someone drops out. It stops because the entire room goes quiet at once, the way a forest goes quiet right before a storm. I feel it before I understand it, a pressure change in the air, like something large just walked into a small space. A figure steps out of the shadow near the back entrance. She does not walk fast. She does not need to. Every single creature in that room turns to look at her, and half of them shrink back in their seats without seeming to notice they are doing it. She is tall, wrapped in a dark cloak that seems to drink the light around it instead of reflecting it. Her skin is pale, almost silver under the platform lights, and her eyes are a deep violet that catches the glare and throws it back like a warning. She does not raise her hand to bid. She simply says one word, and the translator box at my feet picks it up and repeats it for me. Sold. Sold. The auctioneer stammers something about proper bidding procedure, and she cuts him off with a look. Just a look. He stops talking immediately, the way a candle stops burning when you pinch it. I hear murmuring around the room, low and fast, in half a dozen languages. I catch fragments through the translator. Vael, royal line, crown princess. The words mean nothing to me yet, but the fear behind them means everything. Whoever this woman is, she outranks every single buyer in that bowl-shaped room, and none of them are willing to test that. Guards unlock my chains and shove me forward, off the platform, down a short ramp, and into her path. Up close, she is even more unsettling. There is something ancient in her expression, something that has seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. Except, for just a moment, when her eyes meet mine, I see a flicker of something else. Recognition, maybe. Or confusion. It is gone before I can name it. He is mine now, she says, and her voice carries without her raising it, the way thunder carries without trying. She turns and walks away, and one of her guards, a broad figure covered in dark armor plating, grips my arm and pulls me after her. I do not resist. There is nothing to resist with. I am walking through a crowd of aliens who are all staring at me like I just grew a second head, and honestly, I feel like I might have. We move through a corridor lined with more guards, then through a private hangar bay where a sleek black ship waits, its hull curved like something built for speed rather than comfort. The design is nothing like human engineering. It looks almost alive, like a predator holding still. Inside, the ship is dim, lit by soft strips of blue light along the floor and ceiling. The air smells faintly metallic, clean in a way that feels unnatural. Nobody explains anything to me. I am led down a hallway and into a small room with a single bed, a narrow window, and a locked door. The guard leaves without a word. The door seals with a quiet hiss. I sit down on the edge of the bed and try to process what just happened. An hour ago, I was one option among many on an auction platform. Now I belong to someone who apparently outranks an entire room full of powerful buyers just by walking in. I do not know if that is better or worse. Probably worse. Probably much worse. Through the window, I watch the station fall away as the ship pulls out into open space. Stars stretch into thin lines and then snap back into place as we shift into faster travel. Wherever we are going there fast. I try the door. Locked, of course. I try the small panel on the wall, hoping for some kind of communication system, but it only shows symbols I cannot read. I sit back down and stare at the floor, and for the first time since the transport was attacked, I let myself feel scared, instead of just tense. Hours pass, maybe longer. There is no clock in the room, and I lose track of time the way you do when fear keeps you awake instead of letting you sleep. Eventually the door opens and the same broad guard steps inside. "Come," he says, in rough but understandable standard. "She wants you." I follow him because there is no other choice. We walk through more corridors, each one quieter and more expensive looking than the last, until we reach a set of double doors that slide open on their own. Inside is a large room with a curved window showing open space, and in the center, standing with her back to me, is the woman from the auction. She turns as I enter, and the guard steps back out, leaving us alone. Up close, without the crowd and the panic, I notice details I missed before. She is younger than I expected, though with her kind, age might mean something different than it does for humans. Her cloak is gone now, replaced by a fitted dark outfit that looks more practical than ceremonial. She studies me the way someone studies a puzzle piece that does not quite fit the picture they expected. "You do not recognize me," she says. It is not a question. Should I ask, and immediately wonder if that was the wrong thing to say to whoever just bought me like a piece of cargo. She almost smiles, though it disappears fast. "Perhaps not," she says. "It was a long time ago, and you were busy trying not to die." That sentence should not sound familiar, but something about it tugs at a memory I have not thought about in years. A crashed escape pod. A storm on a moon I was working a salvage contract near. A body I pulled out of wreckage, barely alive, before the storm hit full force. I never learned who that person was. They were unconscious the whole time, and by the time rescue teams arrived, I had already been paid and moved on to the next job. I stare at her, and slowly the pieces click together in a way that makes my stomach drop. "That was you," I say. "That was me," she confirms. "My name is Nixara Voss. I am the crown princess of the Veil Dominion. And you, Ethan Cole, saved my life 6 years ago on a moon most star charts do not even bother naming." I do not know what to say to that, so I say nothing, which seems to be the correct response, because she keeps talking. "Among my people, there is an old law, one most of us assumed was too outdated to matter anymore. If a veil of royal blood is saved from death by someone outside our species, and that person did not know who they were saving, the debt is not paid with credits or favors. It is paid with something older. A binding, a marriage claim, recognized across our entire dominion, whether either party wishes it or not." The room feels colder than it did a moment ago. "I bought you at that auction," she continues, "not because I wanted a servant, and not because I wanted a pet. I bought you because the moment my scanners identified your face in the auction records, an old law that has slept for centuries woke up and told me exactly what you are to me now. I open my mouth, close it, and try again. Are you saying," I start slowly, "that we are married?" "According to the law of my people," she says, "we have been married for 6 years. You simply did not know it yet." I laugh, because it is either that or panic completely, and the laugh comes out sharp and disbelieving. "This has to be some kind of mistake," I say. "I pulled someone out of wreckage. I did not sign anything. I did not agree to anything." "Neither did I," she says, and for the first time, real frustration cracks through her calm exterior. "Believe me, human, if I had any way to undo this, I would have done it the moment my advisors confirmed it. I did not choose this any more than you did. But the law does not care what either of us wants. It only cares what happened on that moon." I sit down hard on a nearby chair because my legs suddenly do not feel steady enough to hold me. "This is insane," I say, mostly to myself. "Yes," she agrees. "It is." Neither of us speaks for a long moment. Outside the curved window, stars slide past in silence, indifferent to the fact that my entire life just turned upside down twice in the same day. First I became property. Now I am apparently married to the person who bought me, a princess from a species I know almost nothing about, ruling over territory I have never even seen on a map. "So what happens now?" I finally ask. Nixara turns back toward the window, her reflection ghostly against the stars. "Now," she says quietly, "we figure out how to survive what this is going to cost us both." I do not understand yet what she means by that. I will, soon enough, but in that moment, sitting in a stranger's ship somewhere between the world I knew and one I never imagined existing. All I can think is that 6 years ago, I pulled someone out of a wrecked pod and never once imagined it would lead me here. The ship hums quietly around us, carrying me farther from everything familiar, toward a life I did not choose and cannot yet imagine surviving. A week passes before anyone tells me the part that actually terrifies me, and it is not the marriage. It is what Nixara eats. I learn it by accident, walking past a sealed medical bay late at night when I cannot sleep. Through a narrow window in the door, I see her sitting across from one of her guards, her hand resting on his forearm, her eyes closed in concentration. The guard's face goes pale, his breathing slows, and for a moment I think I am watching someone die. Then she releases his arm, and he straightens up, blinking, looking tired but very much alive. She notices me a second later. The door slides open before I can decide whether to run. "It is not what you think," she says, though she does not sound particularly bothered by what I might be thinking. "My people do not feed on blood. We feed on bioelectric energy, the current that runs through every living body. Taken carefully, in small amounts, it does no harm. Taken carelessly, or with intent, it can end a life in seconds." I stare at the guard, who nods to confirm he is fine, then walks past me without much interest, like this is a completely normal Tuesday for him. "And you feed on that?" I ask, because apparently my mouth works faster than my sense of self-preservation. "Regularly," she says. "It is how my body sustains itself. I could feed on you, if I wanted to. You would not survive it the way he did. Human systems are not built to withstand what my species can pull from a body, so do not worry. I have no intention of finding out what that would look like." That should comfort me. It does not, entirely, but it is something. Over the following days, I start to understand more about where I have landed. The ship is called the Nightfall Spire, and it belongs to Nixara personally, separate from the larger royal fleet. She keeps a small crew, all fiercely loyal, all trained not to ask questions about the human who now has permanent quarters near her own. I learn that the Veil Dominion controls a large stretch of territory near the galactic core, feared for their military strength and their strange, quiet efficiency. Other species do not go to war with the Veil. They avoid them, the way sailors avoid a coastline known for storms. I also learn that Nixara is not what the stories say. The stories paint her people as cold and merciless, feeding on the weak, ruling through fear alone. What I see instead is someone constantly working, reading reports late into the night, arguing with advisors over supply routes and border disputes, carrying the weight of an entire empire on shoulders that look like they have not rested properly in years. She does not smile much. She does not waste words, but she is not cruel, not to me, not to her crew. Sharp, yes. Guarded, always, but not cruel. One evening she finds me in the small galley trying to make sense of alien food packaging, and for the first time since the auction, she almost laughs. "You look like you are defusing a bomb," she says, watching me squint at a container covered in symbols I cannot read. "I am trying not to accidentally poison myself," I say. "Your food labels are not exactly built for humans." She takes the container from my hands, reads it quickly, and hands it back. "That one is safe for your biology. The blue seal means edible for outside species. Red means it will likely make you sick. Purple means it will kill you within minutes." I stare at the shelf full of unlabeled danger. "Good to know," I say. "Maybe a little late, but good to know." She actually smiles at that, small and brief, but real. It surprises both of us, I think, because she looks away quickly afterward, like she was not expecting to do that in front of me. We settle into something that is not quite friendship and not quite anything else. She teaches me which parts of the ship are safe to wander, which crew members are friendly, and which ones still resent having a human aboard. I teach her, without meaning to, that humans are not as fragile or as simple as her people assume. When one of the ship's systems fails during a supply run, I fix it faster than her engineers expected, and word spreads through the crew that the princess's human husband is not just some helpless prize. That word, husband, still catches in my throat every time I hear it. I ask her one night, over a quiet meal in her private quarters, if there is any way to undo the binding. "There is," she says. "Two ways, actually. One of us could die. That tends to resolve most bindings rather permanently. Or the binding could be formally dissolved by mutual consent, recognized before the royal court and witnessed by at least 3 ranking nobles." "That sounds easier than dying," I say. "It would be," she agrees, "except that announcing this marriage publicly, only to dissolve it immediately, would make me look weak in front of every rival house watching for exactly that kind of opportunity. Right now, only my closest advisors know the truth. The moment it becomes public, and it will, because nothing stays secret in my court for long, I cannot simply erase it without inviting every ambitious noble in the Dominion to test how strong I really am. So we are stuck, I say. For now, she says, until I decide the safest way forward. I want to be angry about that, about being a political problem instead of a person, but something in her voice tells me she hates this arrangement as much as I do, maybe more, because she is the one who has spent her whole life building a reputation that this single event threatens to unravel. Do you regret pulling me out of that wreckage? She asks suddenly, catching me off guard. I think about it honestly before answering. No, I say. I would do it again. I just wish it had not come with paperwork I did not know I was signing. That earns another small smile, and for a moment, sitting across from her in a quiet room somewhere among the stars, the whole impossible situation feels almost bearable. The bearable part does not last long. 3 days later, a priority message reaches the ship, marked with a royal seal I have learned to recognize by now. Nixara reads it standing very still, her jaw tightening with each line. What is it? I ask. She sets the tablet down carefully, like it might shatter if she is not gentle with it. My father, she says. He has heard rumors. Someone at the auction recognized me, and word has already reached the capital that I purchased a human. He is demanding I appear before the court within the week to explain myself. And if you do not, I ask. Then my rivals will claim I am hiding something shameful, she says. And in my world, hiding weakness is far more dangerous than admitting to it directly. So what do we do? I ask. And I notice the word we slipping out naturally now, without me even deciding to say it that way. She looks at me for a long moment, something calculating and tired behind her violet eyes. We tell the truth, she says finally, all of it, in front of the entire court. I feel my stomach drop for the second time since this whole situation began. Somehow, standing in front of a room full of skeptical alien nobles feels even more frightening than the auction block did, and I already know that whatever happens next is going to change everything, for both of us, in ways neither of us can fully control. The ship changes course that same night, engines humming louder as we set a path toward the Vale capital, and somewhere beneath my fear, a small, stubborn part of me starts wondering what it would actually mean to stand beside her, in public, as something more than a debt she is forced to carry. The Vale capital looks like nothing I have ever seen, and I have seen a lot of strange places in my line of work. Towers rise out of dark stone cliffs, connected by bridges of pale light, and the sky above the city glows faint violet instead of blue, colored by something in the upper atmosphere I do not fully understand. It should feel beautiful. Instead, standing on the landing platform with 1,000 eyes watching our ship descend, it feels like walking into a courtroom before my trial even begins. Nixara walks beside me in formal robes, dark fabric lined with silver thread, her expression carved from stone. She warned me on the way down that the court values composure above almost everything else. Show fear, and they will treat you like prey. Show confidence, even false confidence, and they might just respect you enough to listen. I am wearing clothes her staff prepared for me, something between formal and functional, nothing like the practical work gear I am used to. I feel like an actor who was handed the wrong script 5 minutes before the curtain rises. Remember, she says quietly as we walk toward the palace entrance, do not bow. Humans are not subjects of the Dominion. Bowing would suggest you accept a lesser status, and once you accept that, they will never let you claim otherwise again. Noted, I say, trying to sound calmer than I feel. The throne room is enormous, built from the same dark stone as the cliffs outside, lit by strips of pale light running along the ceiling like frozen lightning. Rows of nobles line both sides of a long walkway, each one dressed in colors and styles that clearly indicate rank, wealth, and house loyalty. At the far end, on a raised dais, sits a figure who can only be Nixara's father, the reigning lord of the Dominion. His presence fills the room the same way hers filled that auction hall, except colder, heavier, like standing near an old glacier that has never once melted. Whispers ripple through the crowd as we walk the length of the room together. I catch fragments through the ship's small translator device clipped to my collar. Human, weakness, scandal. A few voices sound curious rather than hostile, but most drip with the kind of contempt that makes my jaw tighten. We stop before the dais. Nixara bows her head slightly, a formal but not submissive gesture, and I follow her lead exactly as instructed, keeping my spine straight. Daughter, the Lord says, his voice carrying easily through the silent room, Explain to this court what I have been told cannot possibly be true. It is true, Father, she says without hesitation. 6 years ago, on a mission that nearly cost me my life, a human pulled me from wreckage before a storm could finish what the crash started. He did not know who I was. He asked for nothing in return. Under the old blood right law, that act binds us. He is my husband, recognized by our oldest traditions, whether this court finds that convenient or not. The room erupts into overlapping voices, some outraged, some simply stunned. I stand very still, feeling every gaze in the room settle on me like physical weight. A figure steps forward from the crowd before the Lord can respond. Tall, sharp-featured, dressed in deep red that marks him as nobility from a rival house. His name, I will later learn, is Victor Cade, second son of House Cade, and he wastes no time making his opinion known. A human, he says, voice dripping with disdain, loud enough for the whole room to hear. A species that has not even mastered proper interstellar travel without borrowing technology from others. And you would have us believe our crown princess is bound to one by ancient law. The law does not ask for your approval, Victor, Nixara says evenly, though I hear the edge beneath her calm tone. It asks only for truth, and the truth is confirmed by royal record scanners the moment I purchased him. You are welcome to challenge the law itself, if you believe you have the standing to do so. Victor's eyes narrow, but he does not immediately respond, and I sense this is not a fight he wants to have directly with her, not yet. Instead, he turns his attention to me, looking me over like I am a piece of livestock at a market. Perhaps the human himself would care to demonstrate why he deserves a place in this court, he says. Our traditions offer a challenge to any outsider whose claim is questioned. A trial of wit, not strength, since strength would hardly be fair to compare. I feel Nixara tense slightly beside me, though her expression does not change. He does not need to prove anything to you, she says. Then let him refuse, Victor says smoothly, and let the court decide what refusal means. I understand immediately what he is doing. If I refuse, I look weak, and by extension, so does she. If I accept and fail, the same thing happens, except worse. He is testing both of us at once, and he knows it. I will accept, I say, before I can think too hard about whether that is a mistake. The room goes quiet again, surprised, I think, that I spoke at all rather than letting Nixara answer for me. Victor smiles, thin and satisfied. Then let the trial begin now, before this court, he says. The Lord on the dais raises a hand, silencing the murmurs instantly. So be it, he says. What form does this trial take, Victor? A question and answer, Victor says. 3 questions, chosen by me, meant to test whether this human possesses the judgment worthy of standing beside Vale royalty. Fail to answer even one with wisdom, and the court may rightfully doubt the value of this binding. I glance at Nixara. She gives me the smallest nod, not permission, exactly, but trust, or something close enough to it that I decide to hold on to it. Ask your questions, I say, trying to sound more confident than I feel. Victor circles slowly, enjoying the audience. First question, he says. If you were given command of a fleet outnumbered 3-1, facing certain defeat, what would you do? I think for a moment, drawing on years of watching cargo captains navigate impossible situations with limited resources. I would not fight the battle they expect, I say. I would use the terrain, the environment, anything unpredictable to make their numbers work against them instead of for them. A fight you cannot win, honestly. You win by changing what winning means. A ripple of quiet interest moves through the crowd, and even the Lord on the dais leans forward slightly. Second question, Victor says, sharper now. If your leader made a decision you believed was wrong, but she had already committed publicly, what would you do? I would tell her privately, honestly, without embarrassing her in front of others, I say. And if she still chose her path, I would stand beside her anyway, because loyalty that only exists when you agree is not loyalty at all. I do not look at Nixara when I say it, but I feel her gaze on me anyway, and something in the air between us shifts, just slightly. Victor's expression tightens, clearly frustrated that I have not stumbled yet. Third question, he says, voice colder now. If you discovered your marriage was never about love, only law, would you still call yourself her husband? The room goes utterly silent. I understand exactly why he saved this question for last. It is not really about wisdom. It is meant to embarrass, to expose the truth everyone already suspects, to make me admit out loud that this bond was never chosen freely. I take a breath before answering. Marriages built on law instead of choice happen more often than people admit, I say. Even among your own nobility, I imagine. But a bond does not stay hollow just because it started that way. It becomes real through what people choose to do with it afterward. I did not choose this beginning, but every day since I have chosen to stand beside her anyway. That is not the law speaking. That is me. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. I do not know if I passed or failed, only that I meant every word I just said, and saying it out loud in front of an entire hostile court feels more terrifying than the auction block ever did. The Lord on the dais finally speaks, his voice unreadable. The human answers with more clarity than I expected. He says, "Victor, your trial is concluded. The court has heard enough." Victor's jaw tightens, but he bows stiffly and steps back into the crowd, defeated for now, though something in his eyes tells me this is not the end of his interest in destroying what I just defended. Nixara turns to look at me, and for the first time since I met her, I see something unguarded in her expression, something that looks almost like relief, or maybe something warmer than that, though neither of us says anything about it in front of the court. The Lord rises from his throne. "Let it be known," he announces, "that the binding between my daughter and the human Ethan Cole is recognized by this court, witnessed and confirmed before the nobility of the Dominion." The words echo through the chamber, and somewhere beyond these walls, I know they will echo much further than that, across every house, every rival power, every corner of the galaxy paying attention to what just happened here. "The human is my husband," Nixara had said, back when it was only a private admission between two people trying to survive an impossible situation. Now it is public record, undeniable, unshakable, and I have a feeling the real challenges are only just beginning. The explosion happens before I even hear the warning alarm. I am in the lower engineering deck of the Nightfall Spire, helping one of the crew members named Dara recalibrate a power coupling, when the entire ship lurches sideways and the lights flicker from soft blue to warning red. Metal groans somewhere above us. Dara grabs the railing to keep from falling, shouting something into her comm unit that the translator struggles to keep up with. "What happened?" I shout over the noise. "Outer hull breach," she yells back. Deck 9, that is near the princess's private quarters. My stomach drops. I do not wait for permission. I move toward the emergency ladder and start climbing before Dara can stop me, ignoring her shouting after me to wait for security teams. The corridors on the upper decks are chaos, smoke curling along the ceiling, emergency lights pulsing red, crew members running in every direction trying to seal breaches and reroute power. I push through them, following the path toward Nixara's quarters, my heart pounding harder with every step. I find her in the corridor outside her rooms, standing over the body of one of her personal guards who is not moving. Her hands are glowing faintly, the way they do when she uses her ability, and I realize she just used it defensively, pulling energy from an attacker rather than feeding gently the way I saw her do before. "Someone tried to breach my quarters directly," she says, breathing hard, her eyes sharp and alert despite the chaos around us. This was not random damage. This was an assassination attempt. Before I can respond, 3 more figures appear at the far end of the corridor, dressed in unmarked black armor, weapons raised. Nixara pushes me behind her instantly, positioning her body between me and them, which strikes me as backwards considering she is the one they clearly came for. "Get to the escape pods," she orders. "Not without you," I say. There is no time to argue. The attackers open fire, and Nixara raises a hand, pulling a wave of defensive energy that scatters their first shots harmlessly against the corridor walls. She is strong, faster than I expected, moving with practiced precision as she counters their advance, but I can see the strain building on her face with each exchange. Whatever weapons they are using, they are designed specifically to counter her natural abilities, forcing her to work harder than she should need to against ordinary attackers. I look around desperately for anything useful and spot a maintenance panel along the wall, the kind I have already learned to recognize from weeks of exploring the ship out of boredom. An idea forms fast, reckless, but it is the only one I have. "Buy me 30 seconds, I shout to her. She glances back, confused, but does not question it, throwing herself fully into holding the attackers back, while I rip the panel open and start rerouting power lines with hands that are shaking more than I would like to admit. If I remember the ship's layout correctly, this section connects to an emergency bulkhead system, designed to seal breached corridors automatically during hull damage. It is meant to activate through the bridge, but with enough direct rerouting, I might be able to trigger it manually, right here, right now, sealing the attackers into a contained section of the corridor. Wires spark against my fingers as I cross 2 connections that were never meant to touch, and for a terrifying second, nothing happens. Then, with a heavy metallic groan, a reinforced bulkhead door slams down from the ceiling, cutting the corridor in half, trapping the 3 attackers on the far side, separated completely from us. Nyxara stares at the sealed door, then at me, breathing hard, energy still crackling faintly around her hands. "How did you know that would work?" she asks. "I did not," I admit. "I guessed based on the wiring pattern." "I am glad it worked." She almost laughs, though exhaustion and adrenaline make it come out shaky instead of amused. Security teams arrive moments later, securing the trapped attackers and clearing the rest of the ship deck by deck. It takes almost an hour before anyone confirms the ship is fully secure again, and by then, both of us are sitting in her private quarters, surrounded by the mess of the earlier fight, saying very little. "Who were they?" I finally ask. "Mercenaries," she says. "Unaffiliated on record, but the weapons they carried are custom, expensive, the kind only a noble house could commission. I have my suspicions about who paid for this." "Victor," I say. She nods slowly. "He would not risk moving against me directly. That would violate too many laws even he cannot ignore, but eliminating me quietly, through hired hands, while publicly claiming innocence, that is exactly the kind of strategy he favors." Anger flares in my chest, sharp and unfamiliar in its intensity. "He tried to kill you because a trial did not go his way," I say. "He tried to kill me because our marriage threatens the balance of power he has spent years building," she corrects. "House Cade has quietly opposed closer relations with outside species for generations. If the crown princess is publicly bound to a human, and that bond becomes something the court respects rather than mocks, it opens a door he desperately wants kept shut. Alliances with new species mean new trade routes, new military strength, new political rivals rising to challenge houses like his. You are not just a personal complication to him, Ethan. You are a symbol of change he cannot allow to succeed." I sit with that for a moment, the weight of it settling heavier than I expected. "I did not ask to be a symbol of anything," I say quietly. "I just wanted to survive an auction." "I know," she says, and something softens in her voice, something that was not there when we first met. "But like it or not, that is what you have become, and I am sorry that surviving me has apparently become just as dangerous as surviving that auction block." I look at her carefully, taking in the exhaustion behind her eyes, the way her hands still tremble slightly from the fight, the fact that despite everything, despite being one of the most powerful people in this entire empire, she still chose to shield me first when the attack began. "You did not have to protect me back there," I say. "You could have let them focus on me while you dealt with the real threat." She looks almost offended by the suggestion. "You are not a distraction to manage, Ethan," she says. "You are my husband." Whatever that word meant when the law forced it on us, it does not mean that to me anymore. The room goes quiet, and for the first time since this entire impossible situation began, neither of us tries to fill the silence with anything else. "What does it mean to you now?" I ask, my voice quieter than I intended. She takes a long moment before answering, like she is choosing each word carefully. "It means I trust you enough to fight beside you instead of hiding you away for safety," she says. "It means when Victor's weapons pinned me down today, some part of me was more afraid of losing you than losing the fight itself. I did not expect that. I am still deciding what to do with it. I do not have a clever response ready. I just nod, letting the moment settle between us instead of rushing to fill it with words. We do not have much time to process any of it though, because within the hour, a new message arrives from the capital, and this one carries even worse news than the attack itself. House Cade has formally challenged the succession, Nyxara reads aloud, her voice tightening with every line. Citing instability introduced by outside influence as grounds for questioning my fitness to inherit the throne. They are calling for a formal council vote within 10 days. Can they actually do that, I ask? Unfortunately, yes, she says. It is rare, but the law allows any house with sufficient standing to challenge succession if they can convince enough council members that the heir presents a genuine risk to the Dominion's stability. Victor could not kill me quietly, so now he intends to destroy me politically instead, using our marriage as the primary evidence against my judgment. So what happens if the council sides with him? I ask, already dreading the answer. If they side with him, she says, they can strip my claim to the throne entirely, and depending on how far they push it, they could order our marriage dissolved by force, regardless of what either of us wants. The fear in her voice is subtle, buried under years of careful composure, but I hear it clearly now, and it settles something firm and certain inside me. Then we stop him, I say, together, whatever it takes. She looks at me for a long moment, something fierce and grateful passing behind her violet eyes, and for the first time since the auction block, I feel less like a prisoner caught in someone else's political war, and more like someone standing exactly where he chooses to stand. Together, she agrees quietly, and outside the window, the stars continue moving past us, indifferent to the storm building ahead, the same way they always have been. 10 days sounds like enough time until you actually try to use it to save an empire. Nixara spends the first 2 days locked in meetings with advisors, tracing every credit trail Victor's house has touched in the last year, searching for proof that House Cade funded the mercenaries who attacked us. I spend those same 2 days doing something nobody expects from me, wandering the lower decks and docking bays of the capital station, talking to engineers, dock workers, and freight crews, the kind of people nobody important ever bothers questioning. It turns out being underestimated has advantages. Nobody watches what a human mechanic overhears while fixing a broken loading crane. On the 3rd day, I bring Nixara something her advisors could not find on their own. A dock worker named Callum mentioned, almost as a passing complaint, that a private Cade transport had made 3 unscheduled trips to a restricted mercenary staging platform in the outer ring, always at night, always unlogged in the official registry. Ships that are not supposed to exist, moving between places that are not supposed to be connected. That is not proof of funding, Nixara says, studying the flight patterns I sketched out from memory. But it is a thread. If we can match those transport timestamps to unregistered credit transfers, we might build something the Council cannot ignore. We spend the following days chasing that thread together, and something shifts in how her advisors treat me during those long nights of research. At first, they answer my questions with polite dismissal, the tone people use when they are humoring someone they consider unimportant. By the 5th day, they are handing me documents directly, asking my opinion on discrepancies I noticed that they missed, because apparently a mechanic's habit of checking every detail twice translates surprisingly well into financial investigation. On the 7th day, we find it. A registered energy signature from one of the unmarked Cade transports matches exactly with a private credit transfer routed through 3 shell accounts before landing in the account of the mercenary group that attacked the Nightfall Spire. It is not perfect evidence, but it is enough to raise serious questions in front of a council that already suspects Victor's motives. We are not done yet, though, because evidence alone will not save the throne. The council vote requires not just proof of wrongdoing, but demonstrated stability, and Victor has spent days quietly spreading doubt among undecided council members, suggesting that a human consort represents unpredictable risk, regardless of who attacked whom. 2 days before the vote, Nixara calls a private meeting with 3 of the undecided council members, inviting me to attend directly rather than staying in the background. I recognize the risk immediately. If I say the wrong thing, I could hand Victor exactly the ammunition he needs. You do not have to bring me into this, I tell her privately, before the meeting begins. I could stay out of sight and let you handle the politics. I could, she agrees, but I do not want to. They need to see you, Ethan, not as a rumor or a scandal, but as someone real. Victor has spent days making you into an idea he can attack. I would rather they meet the person instead. The meeting itself is tense, formal, every word measured carefully by both sides. The council members ask pointed questions, some respectful, some clearly hoping to catch me in a mistake. I answer honestly, without pretending to be something I am not, describing the auction, the binding, the fear, the slow trust built between 2 people who never asked for any of this but chose to face it together anyway. One of the council members, an older woman with sharp gray eyes named Talia Venn, studies me for a long moment after I finish speaking. You do not sound like someone using this marriage for personal gain, she says. You sound like someone who resents how it began, but has decided the outcome matters more than the beginning. That is exactly it, I say. I did not choose this, but I choose what I do with it every single day since. Something in her expression softens slightly, and though she does not commit to anything outright, I sense the meeting shifted something in our favor. The day of the council vote arrives faster than feels possible. The chamber is even more crowded than the throne room was during my trial, packed with nobles, advisors, and observers from every major house in the Dominion. Victor stands near the front, composed and confident, clearly certain the vote will fall his way. Nixara presents the evidence first, calm and methodical, laying out the transport records, the shell accounts, the direct link between House Cade and the mercenaries who attacked her ship. Victor's expression tightens with each new detail, though he maintains his composure in front of the crowd, waiting for his chance to respond. This is circumstantial, he argues when his turn comes. Transport records prove nothing definitive. My house condemns the attack on the princess as strongly as anyone here, but condemning it does not mean we orchestrated it. The council murmurs, uncertain, and for a moment I worry the evidence alone will not be enough. Then Talia Ven rises from her seat, addressing the chamber directly. I have reviewed the evidence presented, along with independent verification my office conducted separately, she says. The financial trail is convincing enough to warrant formal investigation into House Cade's involvement. However, this council was not convened to judge an attempted assassination today. We were convened to judge the fitness of the Crown Princess's succession claim, based on the stability of her marriage to an outside species. She turns to look directly at me and Nixara standing together. Having met the human in question personally, she continues, I find no evidence of instability. I find evidence of loyalty, competence, and a partnership that has, if anything, strengthened the princess's position rather than weakened it. I move that this council reject House Cade's challenge entirely, and further recommend formal investigation into the circumstances surrounding the attack on the Nightfall Spire. More council members rise, one by one, voicing agreement, until it becomes clear the momentum has shifted decisively away from Victor. His expression darkens, but he does not argue further, recognizing the room has already made its decision. The council rejects the challenge. The Lord presiding over the session announces formally. The succession remains intact. Further investigation into House Cade will proceed under separate authority. Victor turns and leaves the chamber without another word, and though I know this is not truly the end of his resentment, it feels, for now, like a real and lasting victory. That evening, Nixara and I stand together on a private balcony, overlooking the capital city, the violet sky deepening into something closer to true night, as the towers below light up one by one. Neither of us speaks for a long while, simply letting the quiet settle after days of relentless pressure. You could still end this, I say eventually, breaking the silence. The threat is gone. Your position is secure again. Nobody would question you if you dissolved the marriage now that the political danger has passed. She turns to look at me, something steady and certain in her violet eyes that was not there when we first met on that auction platform. I know I could, she says. I have thought about it, more than once, during all of this. But somewhere between that night on the crashed pod 6 years ago, and everything that has happened since, this stopped being about law or debt or political survival. I do not want to end this, Ethan. I choose you. Not because an old tradition demands it, but because I want to. I feel something settle in my chest, warm and certain, the kind of feeling I did not expect to find on the other side of an alien empire's political war. I choose you too, I say, and I mean it completely. She smiles then, real and unguarded, the same way she did that quiet night in the galley over mislabeled food containers, except softer now, without any fear hiding behind it. Word spreads quickly after that night, through every corner of the galaxy paying attention to the Veiled Dominion's affairs. Rival empires recalibrate their assumptions about humanity, suddenly aware that a species they dismissed as minor now holds a direct, respected bond with one of the most powerful royal lines in known space. Trade proposals begin arriving within weeks. Cautious diplomatic contact follows soon after. None of that matters as much to me as the quieter truth underneath it all. I did not ask to be pulled into any of this. Not the auction, not the ancient law, not the political storm that nearly cost us everything. But standing beside Nixara now, watching the city lights stretch endlessly beneath a violet sky, I would not trade a single moment of it, not even the terrifying parts, because somewhere along the way, this stopped being something that happened to me and became something I chose, again and again, without regret. The human is my husband, she had said, back when it was only meant to explain an inconvenient legal debt. Now, standing together under a sky neither of us ever expected to share, it finally sounds like exactly what it always should have been. Not an explanation, a promise.